Senator, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
First of all, you're part of a group of senators that passed the Bipartisan Safety Communities Act. What does it do?
First and foremost, it makes the largest investment in behavioral health in the history of the country. We're going to be able to address the chronic shortages of behavioral health specialists in the rural areas. So that's the foundation of the bill. There's another component in it that is enhancing background checks for people under the age of 21. Why do we do that? Because if you're on your 18th birthday, if you go and apply for a weapon before this law was passed, the fact that you may have been involuntarily committed for behavioral health or have been convicted of a violent crime would not have been a disqualifying event. Since we've implemented the bill, we've had about 300 people who have been disqualified for that. We didn't think it was going to have a massive impact on people who wanted to purchase weapons. Over 125,000 have been able to get them. But these people are people in crisis that are likely to do harm to themselves, maybe someone else. So it's just a well-measured response that also understands the root cause of most gun violence here in this country is behavioral health. We've got to make the investment and do better.
Okay, because as you're aware, critics will say it doesn't do a lot to take guns out of the hands of people that would commit mass shootings like happened in Buffalo or Uvalde, where 19 kids were killed.
I think the critics are wrong. I think that there are a lot of things that we have to do longer term. They think we can pass a bill and prevent this problem. I think we need to invest in counselors in schools. We need to harden schools. We need to make them safer. We need to identify younger people who may be at risk. We need to identify people who have troubling background that it may not be their day to get a weapon. It doesn't mean it's disqualified for life, but at that point in time, we think it should be subject to the same disqualification someone over the age of 21 had committed. So I think it's a good balanced bill and it's aging well. And the other thing is that it's not a red flag law. A lot of people think that we passed a red flag law. It's quite the opposite. The one thing that I demanded to be a part of the bipartisan bill was to make sure that the red flag laws that are on the books in states today actually honor due process. And if they don't adhere to the due process provisions that we have in the bill, they will not get federal funding. I think it's a smart, balanced bill that's going to age really well, and it already is.
Well, you talk about hardening schools. This does put more safety in schools, or safety officers.
It provides funding for school districts to harden the schools, get to the most vulnerable first. It provides more resource officers or funding for resource officers. It provides funding for school counselors so that we can identify young people at risk early, save their lives and maybe the lives of others.
Well, back to critics. Critics would say this puts the rights of gun owners before safety in our kids, does it?
No, I don't think so. The critics at either end of the spectrum got it wrong. They ought to read the bill. It's not that long. They should read the bill and see what we're doing. We're getting to the root causes versus taking the cheap shots that people at the right or the left will take at the bill. Take a look at what we're doing systematically to address behavioral health. The root cause for gun violence in this country. Everybody else thinks you take the guns away or never deny somebody a privilege of having the gun. I think somewhere in the middle is the sweet spot, and that's what this bill is.
All right, let's take you to infrastructure. You're part of that bipartisan bill as well.
Yep.
What does that bill do? If you look forward to 2026, once all that money's out, what do you see?
I'll tell you what the bill's done in Western North Carolina. It's produced $400 million, more than $400 million of program money that's fixing bridges, it's fixing roads, it's upgrading an airport that's one of the fastest growing in the nation, it's improving congestion and safety on I-26, and that's the money that's already been committed. And one of the reasons we're out here in Western North Carolina is to make sure that every county and every town, they may not have the resources to even know the money's available. We're going to do our part to make sure that we get more resources in North Carolina. And we're approaching $500 million since the bill was passed.
Part of this is broadband as well, right?
Right. $1 billion investment we've got in North Carolina over the past month. It's $1 billion investment in broadband across the state. It's going to create economic development opportunities in the West, probably more so than any other part of the state.
All right, you helped negotiate a $65 million raise grant. And part of that money is coming to Western North Carolina as well.
Right.
Can you give me an example of that?
Well, I mean, in North, and that the RAISE grant most likely were some of the interstate corridors. But we've got, I mean, that's why we're trying to get to local elected officials and say, we can help you navigate this, because there's the alphabet soup of grants, and I want every single one that any town or county or the state is qualified for us to get it.
Yeah, I believe about $25 million of that is going to go to the Ecusta Trail in Brevard. So some of that will be coming right home. On infrastructure, you're talking about broadband, you're talking about bridges, roads, airports. Once again, looking in the future, what is the big objective here?
The big objective is to continue to make North Carolina for 2 years in a row has been the most attractive place for businesses to set up shop. A key part of what any business that wants to invest in any state looks at is your credible strategy for infrastructure and labor. We're doing our part to make sure we have broadband, we have good roads and bridges, we can deal with the growing capacity demands in the state. And we're gonna, I fully expect that next year we're gonna be, for 3 years in a row, never been done before, the most attractive state in the nation for business.
Well, so interesting to me and to a lot of voters out there. Voters today, when asked, say they want to see less conflict out of Washington and they want to see more working together. Both of these bills are bipartisan. Why don't we see more of this?
Well, you know, it's always a toxic environment on the big issues. I mean, one thing that your viewers should understand is we work, you would be surprised at the people across the political spectrum that work together every day. It's the big issues that you see the conflict. But when you get to a bipartisan bill, you're going to have to take some political risk. You know, I didn't go into these bipartisan efforts just saying, hold my beer, watch this. I went in there with a very thoughtful process to say, how is this going to benefit the nation, and specifically, how is it going to benefit North Carolina? And these bills are ones that I've said I've gotten a lot of pushback from the right, but now I've got the facts on my side to prove that the infrastructure bill, the Safer Communities Act, these bipartisan efforts are benefiting North Carolina, and they're going to continue to benefit North Carolina. So folks in Washington every once in a while need to do their homework up front, commit to a policy that they know makes sense, and deal with the politics later. That's how Washington should work.
Okay, policy over politics.
Right.
All right, that's it. Are you going to watch the debate tonight?
I am going to watch it from the start to the final round of the bell. It's going to be interesting to see. I hope that what we see on the debate stage tonight is some discussion about the legal issues, whether it's President Trump or Hunter Biden. But what I really want to hear from the candidates is do you understand the issues that are facing the nation today? Do you have a solution for solving them? Are you going to work with Congress to get it done? And I think that that's what the American people want. Next November, we need to know we want to gauge a candidate who understands the problems, laser focused on them, and that's what I hope comes out of the debate tonight.
Well, on that note, I have to ask you about North Carolina politics. There's such a Republican Party focus on transgender abortion issues. Is this really where the voters are?
Well, I think if you look at North Carolina compared to other states, they're managing those issues, I believe, much more effectively than I could list out 5 or 6 states where I think they're overreaching and they may suffer political consequences as a result. But I think Speaker Moore and Senator Berger are doing a pretty good job of focused primarily on business. It's why we're on I think the prefaces of our 3rd year of being the most attractive state for business. So I give them a lot of credit. You've always got to deal with the priorities of the members of your caucus, but I give Phil and Tim a lot of credit for making me proud that I'm a senator from the great state of North Carolina.
All right, last question. Football.
Oh, Panthers?
Predictions, I don't know.
You know, I just hope they get into the playoffs. I'm a season ticket holder. I've been going to the games since the mid-'90s when they set up shop after being in Clemson for a year. You know, I hope this QB investment works, but again, we're talking.
We're going to find out, right?
Right, but I mean, I love football. I mean, at the end of the day, if I have to give up every other sport, it'd be a baseball just before football. Those are the 2 sports I love watching.
Maybe we'll play on a senior league. Not yet. Senator Thom Tillis, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.